Hello everyone, welcome to the series of intuitions. Today we are discussing on the topic of how to deal with ego. So I'm Raghava from Hyderabad. I am an IT professional and I work for Wipro. Today I have Varshika and Funny brother with me. Uh, Hello Varshika, hello Funny.
Hi
Hi
Raghav.
Raghav. Yeah.
So my name is Varshika. I'm from Hyderabad. I'm a student of design. I'm a meditation trainer, and I'm a mother to a 2-year-old. How about you, Funny?
My name is Fanindra and I work as a design engineer in a company named Site. Yeah, that's just brief about me.
Thank you Varshika, thank you Funny. So as we know, we are discussing about the topic how to deal with ego. So we will first understand what actually ego and self-respect means. So I have often seen that people misunderstanding ego with arrogance. I have seen it quite a lot, and it is also termed as something bad in many books by many speakers, etc. Yes, it can be bad, and it can be negative in certain situations, and we will discuss about that later. But without ego, I won't even know that I am alive. Uh, just like a stone that doesn't know that what it is. So ego to my mind is acknowledging yourself and being aware of the existence of yourself. So ego can help you achieve your goals actually, and it can boost your confidence to take up tasks. But in other way, ego can also make our perception and vision blurry. For example, we sometimes overestimate or over exaggerate our capacities, and also sometimes we underestimate ourselves subconsciously because we as human beings do not like failures. We fear of failures, and ego is something which doesn't like to fail. Um, because of that, there is a thin line between self-respect and ego. So, self respect is a feeling and a sense of honor and dignity within ourselves. And without self respect, you can neither love yourselves or you can love others. And also, something important with self respect is self respect has the ability to discriminate and also choose between what is good for you and something which will satisfy your greed, which will eventually affect your ego in a negative way. So that is the reason you see the greatest men who were born on the earth till now, they everybody of them had a great level of self-respect, and you can see that they had a they were unshaken, and they have a great capacity to achieve their goals. And this is just a brief about what ego and self-respect, according to me, is. And funny, what is your opinion on this?
Yeah, thanks Raghav. That was a good introduction. Yeah. For me, when I thought about the word ego, actually I got into the three perspectives of ego, which were it was classified as per. Yeah, in that, like generally, I got into that word ego. It's like it varies its place and position as per the time and where you are and what aspect you are doing it for. So, for suppose if we take a child, for suppose below 5 to 10 years, yeah, whatever he wants, that should be done. That is the basic ego which every individual should, you know, should equip with when they're born. And soon after, when you keep on growing, you will have a competitive spirit or sense of attainment or achievement which can take you furthermore. This is a kind of ego which which most of the youth can engulf in them. And when you become a boss or when you are a superior of an organization. At that time, you like people are dictators. They will rule. This kind of stuff will come under super one kind of ego. And yeah, this is what I thought about ego. And coming to the word self-respect, it actually refers the similar but not the same diction as far as the meaning in dictionary is concerned. But along with your stuff, mean like for suppose if I am taking me as an example, if I consider myself at each and every point wherever I go and whatever I do, then it will be considered as an ego. But whereas if I do something like along with me, if I think of others, respecting others, prioritizing others' values equal with me, there comes the aspect of self-respect. It's a kind of pride within the self. It doesn't mean degradation of others. I hope, yeah, I want Varshika to continue on this respect. Yeah.
Yeah, that actually, yeah. So that's what I was thinking as well, that respect and self-respect and ego are different things. And one word that struck me when we think about these terms, self-respect and ego, is the word respect. What does respect mean? And generally, when we respond to a situation egoistically, we tend to disrespect the person in front of us, we tend to disrespect our own selves and the circumstances around us. So for me, the word respect means accepting who a person truly is. Respect is empathy. Today, thankfully, we're talking so much about mental health problems, and almost everyone is starting to understand that their minds need cleaning, in fact, deep cleaning. We're troubled by waves of disturbances, despair, regrets in our mental space. And we want to be in a healthier mental space. That is the way we think, finding happiness within us, and the mind that shapes our responses. So when I was, from what I've seen, when I was at my lowest lows, and I found this very sincere will and motivation to bring about change within myself, I started to love myself and accept myself the way I am. So we start with this, first this, and then we respect the scars that we have acquired that have taught me so many lessons that are the reason for my growth. And then I start to unlearn those conditionings and prepare a clean slate. So when we come to this stage of a clean slate in our minds, we become kinder, we become more compassionate, not just towards ourselves, but we also develop empathy towards others. It changes how we perceive others. And a compassionate heart, such a compassionate heart, it does not display anger, it does not display jealousy or hatred towards another person. So we learn to respect the other person as well and accept who they really are without any judgments. We learn to send love towards everyone around us. Then there is no abuse of our environment, there is no abuse of the relationships that we are in. So we can discuss at length about, these are very different approaches, self-respect and ego. And I think I can ask Raghav now to tell us more about how these two are different.
Yeah, Varshika, thanks for that. Actually, while I was thinking about what ego is, I came up with my own way of segregating what ego is. So I thought of ego as three different categories. Like one is physical. So ego is something which we identify ourselves, right? So if somebody identifies oneself with their physical appearance or their body, it is something physical. So for example, like athletes, actors, models, etc. These people identify themselves with their physical nature more. So another one is mental. So coming to mental is somebody who identifies himself or herself with their mental capacities or their intelligence. So, for example, we have scientists, mathematicians, poets, writers, authors, etc., which will come into this bucket. So another one is spiritual, the one who identifies himself or herself with their spiritual or moral superiority. In this, we have priests, uh, and religious leaders, etc. So we basically have all these three uh, components within us, but in various different proportions. Uh, Actually, the root of the problem comes with our what I thought is it comes from the upbringing and the social conditioning we had. Right from the childhood, we are made dissociated with ourselves, and we always start measuring our worth on basis of how well we do at school compared to others. The more we score or the better we perform, uh, the more worthy you're made to feel. So, for example, a student compares himself with a uh, fellow student, a employee compares himself with a colleague, a politician, for example, compares with the opponent, etc., etc. So everybody does this in their own way in various spheres of their life. So what happens is we subconsciously start programming our mind in such a way that unless I outperform and do better than others, my existence wouldn't be perfect and complete. So this is done by everybody without their knowledge. So when we associate our ego with such things, our self-respect also goes down. For example, whenever we fail to reach our goals or achieve them, eventually our self-respect will go down. So our egos in that way gets affected by the environment we live in, the people we meet, the things the media we consume, the things we hear, the things we read, everything, all these things in our part of life program our minds in some way or other to believe that we are not complete and you need something external to fill that void. So these are my thoughts on how our ego is affected by our external circumstances and how we project ourselves to the world because of that. So, Varshika, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so actually, I'm just continuing what you said, that self-respect and ego are two completely different approaches to a situation. They define our behavior and they stem from very different conditions within us. So let us look at ego first. It is a reaction to a situation caused by our own internal fears, our own internal biases. And the disturbances inside us, they get projected outside, they make us react to a situation egoistically. Our inner turmoils, they distort our vision. So the patterns laid down in our subconscious mind during the early years of our childhood, like you said, they form these prejudices as we grow up, and they reflect in our behavior or the way we judge circumstances and people, including the way we judge ourselves. So I'll share one example. I heard a very good story last week that a husband orders a bright lemon yellow car for his wife's birthday surprise. And when he takes his wife to the garage to present the car to her, he finds that the car is in fact green and not the bright lemon yellow that he had ordered. So he called up the dealer and shouted at him angrily for this mess up. The dealer got the car picked up from his house. And when he took the car back to the warehouse, they confirmed at the warehouse that the car was indeed the lemon yellow which the husband had ordered. So the car was once again delivered to his house at the man's garage. And the man still saw that the car was green. He angrily took the car out of the garage, brought it out into the sunny driveway in the outdoor light. In the outdoor light, the car appeared lemon yellow. So the delivery staff noticed that an electric blue light in the garage was making the car look green. So I think the story is so apt in understanding ego. That angry phone call that the man made, that is our ego reacting to a situation out of anger. And the electric blue light in his garage is this veil of internal fears and prejudices and scars which blurred our vision. So when we react, say out of anger or out of jealousy or disdain or hatred, they are a result of our inner turmoils. They are like obstacles that block the path to our heart, our true nature, who we really are inside. And when we remove these acquired patterns and impressions that we have accumulated lifelong, through, like Raghav said, through social conditionings, upbringings, maybe traumatic events, through our environment. So when we let go of these, when we find a way to our real nature inside us, when we start to see the goodness of our heart, when we start to feel the stillness and the peace inside us, and then we're completely unaffected by the external environment. So to bring this, to unveil this truth is what I understand self-respect is. It is basically acceptance, accepting who we truly are our true nature. And the process of identifying these subconscious patterns and not being fooled by them is how we accept our scars, our faults, our weaknesses. So for example, say a child who has seen abuse in her early years, that child will start to learn that love coexists with abuse. And abuse can be physical, abuse can be emotional. So when the child grows up, the child is still okay being abused in relationships because those patterns were written in the child's brain in the early years, suggesting that this is how adults love. So the child will always be running low on self-respect, always unhappy and not understanding why. And when the child truly understands what has happened, truly starts realizing what true love is, and that there is no need for abuse in a relationship, uh, that is when she starts to heal from her childhood traumas. That is when the child starts to love itself, starts to respect itself, and which is why they say that walking away from an abusive relationship is not selfishness or ego. It is an act of self-respect, and drawing healthy boundaries are always important. So we start to rewrite these patterns in our minds. We don't pass it on to the next generation. We start to leave better footprints in the world. And this is where, self-respect, in contrast to ego, self-respect comes from a place of healing, a place of growth within us. It comes from an expansion of the heart. It is accommodating of one's faults, learning from them, and growing forth. So self-respect is a sign of, to me, self-respect is actually a sign of our own evolution, and it will reflect in our behavior. So what about Funny Brother? Can you
Yeah,
please tell us more about how you think self-respect and ego are very different?
yeah. When I thought actually regarding this word, as you, Vashika, you dealt very great in this correlating ego with the emotional intelligence. Yeah, most of the cases I have experienced are about ego handling with intellectuals. Actually, since already Raghava brushed about this, yeah, most, see, for suppose if any individual or a person, if he is having some innate abilities like talent or knowledge, that should be utilized or used for their transformation process in order to keep them going in a prescribed path or towards their goal, whatever they are destined for. But what it nowadays it's happening is like at times like if a person is going to have some kind of talent which nobody possesses, it doesn't mean that he need to show that in front of someone or something like this. And the main thing with the knowledge, I mean the ego associated with the knowledge or talent, how it comes is like most of the cases it will bring problems. Recently I have gone through one story. In that there will be a sculpture in a village, like he used to make very beautiful astounding statues, while it is like if anyone goes and sees those statues, they will feel like whether it is real or what. Like he has got that much talent. And so everyone, he earned a lot, he got a fame, name, everything. And since time has to go on, one morning came, like he is at the deathbed, and he don't want to, he don't want to go out of this place. So he had a tricky idea in his mind, like he what he did is he just sat along with his statues which were sculptured by him, so that the whoever the messenger will comes, he will get confused like who exactly, where the person exactly is. So he did that. And the person who came, the messenger or whoever, that person, he came, yeah, he searched about where this guy is. He has gone through this sculptures and all, he didn't find him. So he has got one idea. Okay, so sculptures don't have ego, whereas persons have. So he said like he went to one sculpture and like went to one statue and said, hey, there is a mistake in the statue. If whoever is the owner of this, if comes in front of me, I'll tell him what is the fault with this statue. So his ego got hurt and literally he came out, who are you talking about? It's me. Like that he came and he catched him and he took him. So sometimes, it's we need to tackle it, like where to show, where not to show. We need to, use it. Like it has to be used. That's what people say. Like, even if you have wisdom, if you have knowledge, it's the wisdom where it plays how to use that knowledge or talent properly in the right direction for the benefit of you as well as others. Yeah. What do you think about Raghav? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice story. Actually, I also have one real experience. A person who I know, who is already earning well. He works more and more. He tries to take more jobs. He's already earning well, but he still tries to earn more and more and more and more. So I found I thought of it. What might be the reason? So when I when I got this topic, I felt somewhere he's lacking the self-respect. So he thinks if he earns more money, he will get that respect he's lacking. So this is one example. You can associate it with many other examples with many other people within your community, whoever you know. It is happening everywhere in the world. So basically, we, this is like survival of the fittest, right? So animals have this way of living. Surviving is all about survival of the fittest. But here in humans, we are more evolved. Our heart is more evolved, and because of that, we can sympathize with others with that heart. So, but when you see the world is actually heading towards more animalistic way of living, and you see everybody is trying to step ahead of others, and you can see this in every sphere of life and in every profession for that matter. So because this is an issue, do you think there is a way to address this? I thought then I felt yes, we can address this. Actually, we have to reprogram our minds. We have to shift our focus of our identity from external world to the internal world. So, because as we know, our external world is ever changing. So it always throws new challenges, always gives you new goals, new troubles every day, every now and then. So there must be something, a safe haven where you can um, call yourself safe and secure in that place. So here, heartfulness meditation helps to achieve this in a very natural way. So it actually trains your mind in such a way that you go within yourself, you feel content, and you feel settled within yourselves, irrespective of the external circumstances. If you practice regularly, because now the idea of ego has shifted from something external to something internal, because external uh, things can change anytime. But when it comes to internal, uh, it is always same. It is as you see, as you make it for yourselves. So this way, heartfulness is a boon for anybody who is going through such challenges or you know has to face such situations in life where it is getting more and more competitive, uh, has to face so much you know stress in day-to-day activities or workplace. So this is my opinion on how to get out of the mess of how ego plays with our mind, and how it crumbles our self-respect as well eventually. So Varshika, what is your take on this?
Yeah, Raghav, actually, so it's, what you said, I was actually thinking, because I also have a 2-year-old, and I think about, how do I pass on these I don't know, life observations to my child. And, the only way to teach these things to our children or to the future generations is obviously if we follow them ourselves. So honestly, my child doesn't care much about my verbal instructions to her. What am I verbally telling her to do? She simply observes our behavior and she follows suit. So, if, say, for example, if we're sitting at a dinner table and, we're all having different things. If I'm having, say, cold coffee and chips and Nutella, I can't ask my child to eat her green vegetables at the same time. So, if we haven't gotten our pieces together, how will our children, if we don't have our pieces together, how will our children have their pieces together when they grow up? And that's the only way I think to pass these on to our kids and to the next generation. How well have we equipped them? It's something that we can actually think about. And also a very common thing, so many movies are made on this, that how do we deal with failures, like I think Funny Brother was talking about this as well, that when we fail, we start to feel worthless, our self-esteem goes on a low, and we don't have faith in our abilities anymore. So we have to make our children prepared to deal with failures as well. We have to support them and hug them when they fail. We should celebrate regardless of what marks they get, and we should teach them never to lose hope, that they can get back up, they can try again. Like when we teach our child to walk, they don't just start walking from one end of the room to the other end of the room. There's a lot of falling, getting up, and we keep encouraging them. It's okay, try once more. So if she walks 3 steps at a row, next day she's going to walk 10 steps at a row, and by evening she'll be walking from one end of the room to the other end of the room. So we need to tell them that it's okay to fail. You're really loved, you're really beautiful, you're shining bright. I think these things are really important, how we teach our kids these things. And nowadays, self-respect and self-esteem are interchangeably used, but they're entirely different. Self-esteem is nothing but one's ego. It is our subjective evaluation of ourselves, which is, again, like you said, Raghav, it is dependent on all that we have seen and learned in our lives. And while growing up, we're taught to compare, we're taught to judge, we're taught to, look at people with contempt, but we're never taught to love people for who they are. In psychology, they say that people who behave disrespectfully, they're fighting low self-esteem issues, which can always be traced back to their early years. We can't respect anyone if we don't respect ourselves. And as a mother, I've realized that the importance of cultivating these habits early on. Teach a child to love and respect itself. When we respect our kids, when we respect ourselves in front of them, they learn to respect themselves. We don't have to verbally teach them or lecture them or anything. It's the easiest way to teach this lesson. And the way we communicate with our children is so important when we're talking about self-respect, because it writes those patterns in their brains, those patterns that we've been talking about for the last, for this session. So during the formative years, when the mind is still plastic, the patterns that we're writing at that time, the younger they are, the more impressionable. So it is, of course, it's really important to talk about, to lead a healthier life mentally, to really deal with our own mental health. And that is a perfect example to our kids. It is also, they also observe how the adults of the house interact with each other. The relationships that they observe at home. Are those relationships toxic and abusive? Are those relationships loving and compassionate? Do you really care for the other person? Do the mother and father really care for each other? What kind of space are they giving to each other? So these things are, of course, it's quite a process to come to this stage. This whole process of going within ourselves and accepting our faults and coming to that stage of evolution, where the way we behave, the way we interact is much better. It's quite a process to come to this stage. And when we have come to that stage, when we have realized who we really are, when we're able to manifest our heart in all actions, we want to protect that innocent self, that healed self within us. And that, I think, gives us the courage to act more responsibly and more consciously. So we pass on this courage to our kids as well, to behave more consciously in the world. The when you're talking about meditation, it is a very important part of my life as well, because I've been meditating for many years now. And that's the role that meditation played in my life, what I've been trying to explain to you, that it helped me to see clearly, to understand that the problem is not always outside me, but it's generally in my own conditioning, and everything that I have witnessed in my earliest years, or everything that I have learned in life through my environments. So meditation, it helps me to clear that fog in my brain. And then when I reach that place of stillness during my meditation, I'm more sensitive to what is actually happening. I'm not seeing things from that electric blue light in the garage anymore, but you can see things for what they really are. You can perceive things. And we truly perceive things only from our heart. So that is how, this whole system of heartfulness meditation helped me, because we're meditating on the heart here. We're going deep within ourselves and reconnecting with our own heart. So, we can feel the environment, we can feel people from our heart instead of over animalizing with our brain. It's only when we feel, when we feel things, we can see our weaknesses and our strengths. And when we feel heart to heart, we can truly bond with the person in front of us. We can sincerely communicate with them. There's no ego in that space. There's no baggage of our own fears, our own prejudices, our own scars. It's such a clean, transparent space between two hearts. So, otherwise we're only caught up in external appearances and judgments. So for me, this whole idea of self-respect, it is being true to our own nature. And meditation makes it possible to live up to our best potential. When the mind is cleared away during meditation, I can finally see what I'm capable of doing, what my potential is. And it's very important to pass on this to our kids at the early years. A meditative mind is more creative, it's more inspired, it's more focused. So I'm an upgraded version of myself. And I think doing that it's an act of self-respect, allowing the self to fully express. I think that's, for me, meditation is like the ultimate act of self-respect, when I'm connecting within myself and realizing who my actual self is, and to be able to manifest that in my actions. So that's for me how meditation helped me. What about you, funny brother?
Yeah, for me, actually, it was like a deeper introspection kind of experience I had. Yeah, it was like when I started in the beginning, it was like, yeah, how can I sit for half an hour or this much, whatever it is. Like, I don't want to sit myself in some place. But soon after, when I started practicing, the beauty of this I found is like, others started telling me, like, you, man, there is something different in you. That difference, it's not in appearance, actually, the way we talk, the way we express our views without hurting others, or even the knowledge what we express. A few people literally told me, like, even you are speaking high knowledgeable stuff, it is very submissive manner. I was shocked. Like, I never used to speak like that. I was very, like, face to face hitting the bullseye. I used to speak like this, but I was surprised. Yeah, internally many changes have been occurred for me, as I can say. And subconscious level, we can't observe the subconscious mind, but I can feel sometimes, like, even the act of gaining it sometimes will make me, get into it. This meditation helped me in that aspect. I can say, the more, it's like, it's all about, like, I felt like the more inclined you are towards it, the more you'll get benefited. That's my, in a word, if I want to frame it. Yeah. Yes. What about you, Raghava brother? Yeah.
That's a great discussion, actually. So we had a very brief discussion, as well as we had great points put by each one of us. I enjoyed it a lot. Um, so, Varshika, do you want to conclude it with a meditation?
Yeah. So I think it's most apt if we conclude this with a meditation. And I'll guide you through how we do the heartfulness meditation. It's a very simple, natural process where we simply close our eyes and we give this idea that there is divine light present in my heart and that I'm being attracted towards it. So naturally, when we close our eyes, there'll be a lot of thoughts coming in, which is all right. It's natural. It's okay. We can just gently ignore those thoughts and gently bring our attention back to the meditation. So what we'll do is I'll first guide you through the heartfulness relaxation, which will help us to get into that relaxed space. And then I'll lead you on into meditation directly from there. So you just have to, be comfortable, find a comfortable spot, make yourselves comfortable, relax yourselves, and I'll give you instructions. You just have to simply follow them through the relaxation process. And then we'll start with the meditation. Gently close your eyes. Now bring your attention to your toes. Wiggle your toes. Feel that the energy from the earth is moving up into your toes, into your feet, relaxing your feet. Feel the energy move up into your lower legs, relaxing your lower legs right up to your knees. Feel the energy move up into your thighs, relaxing your thighs. Your entire legs are now completely relaxed. Feel the energy move into your hip, stomach, and waist. Feel your hip, stomach, and waist getting completely relaxed. Let the energy move up into your chest area, relaxing your chest area. Feel the energy move into your lower back, middle, and upper back. Feel your entire back getting completely relaxed. Feel your shoulders getting relaxed. Any strain or tightness in your shoulders is simply melting away, and your shoulders are getting completely relaxed. Feel the energy move into your upper arms, elbows, forearms, right up to your fingertips. Feel your entire arms getting completely relaxed. Feel your neck getting relaxed. Let the energy flow up into your face, relaxing your facial muscles. Let your chin relax, your mouth, nose, cheeks, ears, eyes, forehead, right up to the back of your head. Let your eyes be very gently closed with no weight upon them. Feel all your facial muscles relaxing. Now your entire body, from the top of your head to the tip of your toes, is completely relaxed. Feel the relaxation in your entire body. Gently bring your attention to your heart. Feel the love in your heart, the light, the peace, the quiet in your heart. Feel the stillness within you and slowly get absorbed in that stillness inside. Let us start meditation. Give a subtle suggestion to yourself that the source of divine light is inside your heart and you're being attracted towards it. If any thoughts arise, gently bring your attention back to your meditation. Give a very subtle suggestion to yourself that the source of divine light is in your heart and you're being attracted towards it. Let's meditate. That's all. Please keep your eyes closed for a minute and observe how you're feeling. Make a note of your inner condition. When you feel ready, you may gently open your eyes.
So that was a very good session. Thanks for the meditation, Varshika, and thanks for the great thoughts from both of you. And uh, thank you all for joining.